And we're back. Welcome, everybody. I am Jay with Guilty of Crime. Come on in. Do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, get a membership if you can. What's up, everybody? Come on, let's go. Midweek, happy Wednesday. Let's get this going. How y'all doing? Jack Stormo, good to see you. Emily Jane, Mama Pearl, Daisy Duke, Teresa, Holly, all the mods, Patricia NY, Jen's a gypsy, Sadie's mama. Love you guys. Listen, I love this time of year for many reasons, many reasons. And I also love when we get a case that is almost 3 decades old and new DNA evidence from clothing changes everything. Now, the reason I called it from the clothing changing everything, folks, is because they actually have DNA from JonBenet Ramsey's panties. Right now, I'm going to give you a trigger warning on this case, and I did an update in this case this last year on March 23rd of 2025. I'm going to show you on my ghost account. I'm going to show you the basic of the story, and then you guys can go in there and check out the crime scene photos that I never saw before I posted them on Ghost. So I'm not going to show those today. No shocking photos, but it's shocking new DNA evidence coming from none other than JonBenet Ramsey's panties that they're testing. And you're going to hear about the experts today. You're going to hear about people saying they're still pointing the finger at JonBenet Ramsey, John Ramsey, her father. Also, we got Burke pointing the finger and experts, that are still, after all this time, even though John Ramsey, her father, is going to give us an interview about it, we still are blaming him, and it's very apparent. So I'm going to tell you what I think as we go, and then you're going to hear from other experts, from John himself and Deception Detective, which never ceases to amaze me with the stuff he comes up with. Kathy, thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Hello, my favorite crime crew. I'll say, Jack Stormo, welcome to the crime crew. I'm glad you got your membership. Y'all, we're giving away stuff every day. I don't know what's happening today. I'm going to try to do memberships. We'll see how we do with the goal. We gave out a stocking yesterday, and we're going to give 2 of those. Mr. Mabster is going to get one for the lady. So it's the holiday season. Kristen Perry says, you're a rock star, Jay. I'll take it. And come on in, shambling, meandering, whatever it is that y'all need. Let's do it. Tracy, Jen's a gypsy, Bree, Summer. Every time you say Kathy, I'm looking, but I'm Summer on here. Yes, Summer. Yes. All right, guys, listen. Literally, you guys, I didn't realize I had to renew. I've been over a year. You've been getting lucky, Jax. You've been getting gifted memberships. We gift lots of memberships here. Foxy gives a membership a day for 420 in honor of her brother. So Sadie's mama, I think Burke needs to be checked out. Y'all are going to get it. We're getting into it today. There's new theories, new evidence, and it's this time of year that we re-examine the case. But the only difference is this time of year, there's actually new evidence and more evidence, guys. So I'm so glad that you guys are here today. Elizabeth, member for 14 months. Thank you. Meander on in, guys. Meander, baby. Meander. I don't just get your butt in here, crawl in here, do what you want. Country rock star, whatever you have it. I want it all. Let's do it. Come on. Happy middle of the week. We can get through this. And this case may just be on the last leg of being solved. If not, we're getting closer to the point of who sexually assaulted JonBenet Ramsey that night or the morning of. It needs solving, and they're certain that we're 2 steps closer. As a matter of fact, a lot of cases have been solved in the way that they're doing it, and I'm just leaving y'all hanging. Indy Isham, my friend, good to see you. You don't have a gifted member, or you don't have a membership. I just want to let you know you're not green anymore. Was she choked? Let's keep going. I'm not going to answer any questions just yet. As I continue, I will see what questions you guys super chat, super sticker, whatever, get my attention. But before I even get into it, I'm not going to start answering questions as of yet. So let me just quickly tell you, listen, we're approaching Christmas. On the morning after Christmas, December 26th in 1996, guys, that was 1 year before I graduated from high school. A 6-year-old little girl named JonBenet Ramsey was found red rummed inside of her family home in Boulder Creek, Colorado. Nearly 3 decades later, in one of the most haunting cases fiercely debated amongst you guys, the American true crime people. Now, listen, a ransom note was left in a basement. She had a fractured skull and the DNA that still raises more questions than answers. This case has challenged investigators, private investigators, and everybody in between, right? It's divided the public, even myself. Today, I'm going to give you, there's multiple theories here, but DNA doesn't lie. So tonight, we're going to talk about the evidence that's new, the suspects in the evidence, the controversies, and the new DNA testing that investigators continue to pursue and are very excited about the outcome of what it may be, right? This is JonBenet Ramsey, an unsolved case that they say is still not cold, which is just crazy, right? It's crazy that it's not cold after almost 3 decades. All right. You guys are just killing it today. Thank you, Indy Isham. You re-upped your membership. And trust me, you don't want to miss out on that. Bree, thank you so much for the 5 Guilty of Crime memberships. Now, I am going to just give you guys a little teaser. We're going to remove this and put this up so you can hear what please say. And then we're going to get into it even deeper. So buckle up, grab your drink, grab your food, do your due, and let's get going. Hey, Foxy, there is absolutely no theories off of the table in this case. It doesn't matter if DNA doesn't match Dad. You have no idea what I have in store for you, and you today. So let's take that off. We don't care about the DNA matching. That has nothing to do with what our theories are today. And I guess I'm going to have to surprise you as well. So regardless if he passed a test, lie detector, regardless if the DNA doesn't match, you just need to hear today. So stay here, Foxy, because even you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, evening, everyone. How you doing? None of that matters right now in this case. So what's up, Tamra? How you doing? Nana rocks. Good to see you. April and November. This case is wild and it keeps getting more. Let me just tease you with this real quick. Let's turn it up and then I'm going to show you something else. I'm going to show you a post that I did 3 months back and then we'll continue.
We gave you an update about a lot of the work that has been done to solve this crime, and those efforts have continued. This case remains a top priority for our department. This past year, our detectives have conducted several new interviews, as well as re-interviewed individuals based on tips that we've received. We've also collected new evidence and tested and retested other pieces of evidence to generate new leads. Techniques and technology constantly evolve. This is especially true with technology related to DNA testing.
Thank you.
While we cannot go into the specifics of who we interviewed, what we tested, and what we've learned without compromising this active investigation, we know it's important to share this update with our community. It is never too late for people with knowledge of this terrible crime to come forward, and I urge those responsible for this murder to contact us.
All right. A quick little teaser from Boulder, Colorado on 12/12/2025. 5 days ago. And all other information is either 5 days or sooner. I'm telling you, I'm surprised none of y'all heard about this yet because I did. And it's been on my radar since I saw this come out. So let's drop this down and let me introduce you to Ghost real quickly. I saw a lot of people signing up for Ghost. And I know it's that time of year where it's like, hey, I don't want to. But if you sign up for Ghost and you get it for a year, you're going to get a deal because in 2026, prices are changing. Everything's changing. Everything's gone up. All right, now take a look. This is Ghost. A lot of you guys ask me, what the hell are you talking about, Jay? What is Ghost? Well, this is Ghost. It's Guilty of Crime Ghost. It's guiltyofcrime.ghost. It's ghost.org. Now, I posted this 3 months ago when some evidence came out, and we wanted to talk about facts and fiction here, and we went over a lot of the evidence in the case, and it's on this page. So we did JonBenet facts and fiction. We went over JonBenet Ramsey, how is pronounced, etc., etc. Little Miss Colorado. She won the beauty pageants for Colorado All-State, American Royal Miss, National Tiny Miss Beauty. She's buried in Marietta, Georgia, folks, besides her mother, who died of ovarian cancer in 2006. So Elizabeth Ramsey never saw this come to a conclusion. Now, I don't know if you guys know she died in a car crash, and her half sister who died in a car crash. And then you go on to Ghost to learn more. And we've got extra crime scene photos and the 911 calls. And guys, these are graphic and gruesome. So I'm not going to just put that out there, not behind a paywall, but go over to ghost.org, guilty of crime, sign up. And I'm not going to show it here. You want to know more, keep going. And then we got lots of pictures in here that, high res, talking about the memory of events, police investigation, and lots of more evidence. 911 and autopsy details are right here on ghost.org, which I can't show you on YouTube. All right, you say B of A D's. What? Good evening. In chat for Libtime, offering a novelty collection of handcrafted. Oh, nice. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right, guys. I guess we've got a troll here. So let's get him out of here. You guys seeing what we're getting here? Kathy, thank you for the gifted membership. Trolls think they're funny, and also thank you for the $2. All right, that was kind of funny, but we're talking about a little girl that was murdered almost 3 decades ago. That I don't find funny. So mods, please watch for these people and just zap them. Their comments were just all over. That's just so disrespectful to do that. You can't do 2 memberships. What do you mean? I'm not sure what that means, but all right. We're not gonna respond to the trolls because we have new evidence today in the JonBenet Ramsey case, and in order to get through it, well, we have to we have to take the time to do it, and we don't want to waste ours, especially when we've got this little girl that needs us to help solve this case and to get the word out there, right? So yeah, good deal for the holidays, dude. Bye. Love you. It was funny, but it's disrespectful when you're covering the death and possibly the raping of this little girl, because they're testing the DNA evidence that was left in her panties, okay? Which means that she was sexually assaulted at some point that night or in the morning. I'm telling you, this is not funny when you do that. So I followed this case from the beginning as well. People are crazy, and there's appropriate time for things and there's not appropriate time. And today that's not. So mods, be aware. All right, so I'm going to drop that down. You guys go ahead. I'm going to put the Guilty of Crime Ghost here. I'm going to put the link to guiltyofcrime.ghost. Go sign up for that. And yeah, let's go. JonBenet Ramsey later met the Natalie Holloway's. He's done a lot. He has done a lot, and yet they still point fingers. She was 6 years old, Nessa. 6 years old. What's up, Chief Rocka? Good to see you. Cheeky, how you doing? All right, let's just get into this, guys. Guys, ladies, people, whatever, whoever's here, let's get those updates in.
3 decades since the death of 6-year-old beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey, Boulder, Colorado police say they now have new evidence. Police have made it an annual tradition to provide updates on the case close to the time of her murder. ABC's Andrew Dinbert is here with the details.
But it feels much different this season, I'm telling you. Mighty Joe, good to see you, my friend.
Andrew, this case has gone unsolved since 1996. So what's the latest we're looking at right now?
Fast approaching the 29-year anniversary of the death of JonBenet Ramsey. And as you mentioned, the Boulder Police Department tries to provide yearly updates. This year, they say they've investigated new leads. They've tested old evidence. And as you mentioned, they say they found new evidence, though they didn't say what exactly has been uncovered since 1996.
But guys, don't worry. Other people are discussing this as well. We've got experts, and we've got John specifically reacting to this. What's up, Sailhounds? Jen, good to see ya. And Bree. All right, guys. I'm just trying to interact. Make sure y'all know how much I appreciate you. Smash that like button. Let's go.
Police department has received over 21,000 tips. They've taken trips to
21,000.
19 different states to investigate leads, and they've interviewed over 1,000 people in connection with the case. The hope here is that they either find a new piece of evidence that blows this thing wide open, or that there are improvements in DNA or other forensic technology, and perhaps they have the answer with them right now, just waiting for that technology to improve. The case remains unsolved nearly 3 decades later.
Wow. All right, Andrew Dimber, thank you for the update.
All right. We got a couple more little. Hold on. Something's here playing. I want you to see the house and then the update from the locals. All right. Let's put this up there. And yeah, I like looking back at the house. A lot of people don't remember a lot about this case. This is January 1st, 1997. They got the police tape out there, right? Because, well, this happened around Christmas.
Tonight, there's a new update in the 1996 murder of child beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey. Boulder, Colorado police say they have collected and tested new evidence. However, they did not release information about that evidence. Authorities say they have conducted several new interviews based on tips. They have also re-interviewed some people tied to the investigation.
All right. And that's what we're going to talk about is the people that are tied, the people that they're looking at, etc. I do wish, however, that the internet would be better. Thank you, Foxy, for the Guilty of Crime membership. If you got that membership, please thank Foxy for that as I queue up this next. Yeah, there's a lot. They're talking about it. I mean, we've got simple explanations and we've got detailed explanations and the theories. It's the weirdest thing that the theories, how they can be such vast theories. So new police investigate possible break, and then we'll get into the John Ramsey, what he claps back, and how they're still pointing fingers at him. But if it was Burke, and Deception Detective has a different theory altogether. If it was Burke, guys, which I talked about a lot in the past, about it being Burke and the family covering up for it. If that's the case, Burke is still alive and well. All right. The only person that's not in this case is the mom, which passed away, not knowing what happened. Or did she? Did she have to do with that? The DNA. Now, this DNA advancement in the ransom note as well, James, I have to tell you about the DNA advancement because they're using the same advancement that they've used in the case of like Kohberger, which before Kohberger was the Golden State Killer, right? New forensic genealogy updates, and they've helped solve other cases. So can they help solve this case? Let's jump into this first with the court TV so you can hear, and then we'll get to the John and Deception Detective. Okay, this is all new. This came out 2 days ago, and now we're gonna talk about it.
And Tommy, I want to turn to another.
Okay, we're going to turn to another.
We've talked about on court TV for a long time the case of JonBenet Ramsey.
I believe that the case will be solved with DNA technology.
And it's wild because he says that and he's all for it, but you're going to see throughout this entire episode people still pointing fingers at him, and you say, why, Jay? Why would they point the fingers if they were cleared? Why? All right. Well, we'll get that today answered for you.
You know, Lou Smith, the legendary detective, was brought in to work on this case by the DA early on, out of retirement, told me, he said, this case will be solved by DNA.
So nearly 3 decades later, John Ramsey continues speaking on the murder of.
And like I said, it's the strangest thing because it doesn't matter if Burke was tested or John was tested. They're doing genetic genealogy to really narrow down. And with the advancements that 3 decades later, something they tested, they were not happy with. All right. Something they did, something they preserved, something they missed is being looked at with a fresh set of eyes. And that's why it feels different this year than it ever has before. And again, you're going to hear all this today.
His daughter, JonBenet, and now police have a new update in the case, but still no suspect. Friday, the Boulder Police Department released a video on the investigation of the 6-year-old's death in an effort to find some new leads. Police Chief Stephen Redfern assures the public that JonBenet's death remains a top priority while sharing some new steps like DNA testing.
Last year, we gave you an update about a lot of the work that has been done.
And again, I showed you a little bit of clip earlier for you to get an idea that this is real. This is happening, and they are very hopeful, which can be, you guys, we can see an arrest for Burke. We can see an arrest for John Ramsey, even though he's saying that. Don't let that fool you, what he says about the DNA testing, because that shouldn't fool you. After being over here with guilty of crime, you should know that everybody's a suspect until they're not. All right.
To solve this crime, and those efforts have continued. This case remains a top priority for our department. This past year, our detectives have conducted several new interviews, as well as re-interviewed individuals based on tips that we've received. We've also collected new evidence and tested and retested other pieces of evidence to generate new leads. Techniques and technology constantly evolve. This is especially true with technology related to DNA testing. Detectives continue to consult with outside experts from across the country.
Now, again, pay attention to this because these are absolutely new leads and new ways to test the DNA evidence. And although they're not giving us exactly, come on, guys, y'all can read between the lines. Has to be someone they knew. They had a seller. Would it be a stranger know that? No. And you know that 75%, even higher of the time, 75 to 90% of all crimes are somebody that you've come in contact with, somebody you know, a family member, or somebody that's, you know, in the same vicinity as you, goes to your school, whatever. It's not just some random, you know, phantom person. So that I absolutely agree that it's going to be someone that they know, somebody that was at the parties. It's all right, but let's go.
As well as our state and federal partners, to strategize and explore all options when it comes to evidence testing.
Okay, now the chief said the department has also been in contact with the Ramsey family. They urge anyone with knowledge of the crime to please come forward. So this update that really didn't give any details is what got us talking. And so
it really didn't, but at the same time it did, because if you listen to what they're actually saying, it says a lot. And that's why I'm so glad Deception Detective also picked this up, because you'll see what I'm saying if you haven't just yet.
What I was wondering, and I want to ask all of you, do you think there's a method to this madness, to have the chief essentially go on, you know?
And listen, I've always had that theory that it was either Burke or possibly the father. Somebody was covering up a lot. Okay. And I did have that theory at one point that Burke did it. They didn't want to lose both of their children, and so they covered it up.
On television, online, on, you know, wherever this update was played publicly, and basically say we have an update and working on it, but there was nothing specific. We're talking about DNA testing. Well, what DNA? Whose did you find? Who are you in? You know, it just, is there a reason for this? I just wonder, are they looking to surveil someone in particular? Are they trying to put this out there to maybe prompt someone to act so they can take a look at what they do? Manuel Gomez, you're joining the conversation. What do you say, please?
Well, I did some severe research into this case, and I have.
And now remember, guys, you say if John Ramsey had been less affluent, he likely would have been the top suspect. SA, motivated crime, last with the victim, first to find the body. But it's interesting that they didn't find the body the first time around. Wouldn't the parents have an idea of where she might be if they knew where that was? All right. Yeah. No, they haven't. They actually have. They've gone to the full extent, and you'll hear that they went to that extent to clear even John, but now they're re-looking, they're retesting, they're redoing, and they're putting new evidence with a fresh set of eyes.
have to tell you, there is DNA found, new DNA found on the little
New.
girl's underwear. Okay.
All right, did you guys hear that? There was new DNA found on JonBenet Ramsey's underwear. That's a big piece of evidence right there.
On the little girl's underwear. Okay. And this is what they were referring to about the DNA. He didn't come publicly and say it, but you notice he was talking more about the DNA. And that's the fact that I found out. Now, what I did know is they haven't researched the aspects they need to. And that is my recommendation and solution to help solve this case is, one, take the new DNA that they found, run it through all the jail databases. That's going to take an investigator anywhere between 2 to 3 months to run the entire United States. But you would run millions of people at one time to see if their DNA matches with the DNA.
Now, listen, the reason this prompted them to do this, and this is what I've been reading and looking at, the Gilgo Beach DNA rulings, right? All of these years, Gilgo Beach, more things coming along, more people. The Gilgo Beach DNA ruling is what gave them hope and what techniques they're using for the JonBenet Ramsey case. So if that gives you any perspective, then there it is.
They found on the clothes of that little girl. Second, okay, on this case, I don't believe that it was just a pedophile that attacked the girl, but I do believe, unfortunately, that the father was involved. And due to the fact of his cordial, nonchalant.
Like I said, this is new evidence, and yet you're going to hear throughout this episode people saying, stop attacking him, but yet you got this guy that's telling you that there's new evidence on the panties, telling you that he thinks that John is involved, even though he's been cleared. How does that happen? Well, because whatever technique they're using and whatever new DNA that they found, well,
attitude when he found the baby, and when he brought up the body from the basement, the body, he asked, is she dead? Now, she had rigor mortis. Her eyes were white. Her body was completely pale. Why would you ask that when you found your kid? You'd be crying. The guy was nonchalant. There's something highly suspicious about him as well.
Mm-hmm. You know, meanwhile, I read Dr. Cyril Weck's book on the case. I've talked to him about it. God rest his soul, one of the greatest forensic pathologists of our time. He was highly suspicious of the father.
Yep.
We're going to get into
the Golden State Killer is what blew this wide open for many cases. All right, the Golden State Killer. They did the DNA testing across the 1, 2, 3andMe, etc. And then bam, they started using that. It just takes one case to be progressive, and they open their eyes and they share it with each other.
More of Dr. Weck's findings later this week on the show. But in terms of what investigators are doing here, Tommy Pope, do you think this could be a prompt? Like, are they trying to prompt someone? Because they said nothing in terms of what's new. We don't know what's new. You just came on and said you're working on the case still. Could this be, deliberate?
A law enforcement tactic, in other words. Yeah, I think it could be. I will say it's an irony, Julie. You and I were talking when I saw you.
And I do wonder if that person is shaking in their boots, whoever might have assaulted her, if they're still alive. I mean, this is, an international case that we're talking about that's been going on for decades. All right. I'm sorry, but I think it's horrible that people are pointing the finger at the father. I think it's terrible to keep disparaging the family. And that's why we're going to have John's response to that today. Everybody doesn't think that, but certain people do. So we're playing both sides of it here. We're playing devil's advocate, and we're listening to what John's saying. We're not nobody's ruling anybody 100% in, but I do think this is a tactic to definitely stir things up.
Studio in Atlanta, how I got invited to New York to talk about the JonBenet Ramsey case like 30 years ago, and the media was saying, why are they not more forthcoming? And I was explaining that sometimes law enforcement has to keep it close to the vest. And I joked that I never got invited back to that group after I told them the media didn't need to know more. But I think, we do have new technology. I can remember a death penalty case I tried right when DNA first started, and it was that RFLP DNA, and you had to have about the sample size of a quarter. And by the time the guy had gotten it overturned and come back, and I had to try him again, we had PCR, and so now you have the smaller, DNA. And so I think they've got the evidence.
And you hear, I mean, you guys know, I posted that up about no DNA back then. Back then, they could only tell you, was it a male or a female? Was it O negative or A positive? That's all they could tell you, which is anybody. We have millions, billions of people roaming this planet, but only a few people were around around the house when that happened, wrote a note from the inside of the house, 4 pages. All right, knew the exact number that the bonus was going to be. Come on, guys, let's be real here. What is your gut telling you? Oh, shoot. All right. Sorry.
Manuel Gomez, you're joining the conversation.
Hold on. I
say it, but you notice he was talking more about the DNA, and that's the fact that I found out. Now, what I did know is they haven't researched the aspects they need to, and that is my recommendation and solution to help solve this case is 1, take the new DNA that they found, run it through all the jail databases. Now, it's going to take an investigator anywhere between 2 to 3 months to run the entire United States. But you would run millions of people at one time to see if their DNA matches with the DNA found on the clothes of that little girl. Second, on this case, I don't believe that it was just a pedophile that attacked the girl, but I do believe, unfortunately, that the father was involved. And due to the fact of his cordial, nonchalant attitude when he found the baby and when he brought up the body from the basement, the body, he asked, is she dead? Now, she had rigor mortis. Her eyes were white. Her body was complete.
And yeah, I mean, the detective screwed up. That's why they're saying they're getting a new, fresh set of eyes on this, okay? That and everybody that was in the case is probably much, much older. You've seen John Ramsey.
Completely pale. Why would you ask that when you found your kid? You'd be crying. The guy was nonchalant. There's something highly suspicious about him as well.
Manuel, I read Dr. Cyril Weck's book on the case. I've talked to him about it. God rest his soul, one of the greatest forensic pathologists of our time. He was highly suspicious of the father. We're going to get into more of Dr. Weck's findings later this week on the show. But in terms of...
We absolutely are going to. There's another theory from the person that wrote the book. So we've got several things going on today, but it's all related to the new DNA and evidence and a fresh set of eyes.
What investigators are doing here. Tommy Pope, do you think this could be a prompt? Like, are they trying to prompt someone? Because they said nothing in terms of what's new. We don't know what's new. You just came on and said you're working on the case still. Could this be, deliberate?
A law enforcement tactic, in other words. Yeah, I think it could be. I will say it's an irony, Julie. You and I were talking when I saw you in studio in Atlanta, how I got invited to New York to talk about the JonBenet Ramsey case like 30 years ago. And the media was saying, why are they not more forthcoming? And I was explaining that sometimes law enforcement has to keep it close to the vest. And I joked that I never got invited back to that group after I told them the media didn't need to know more. But I think, we do have new technology. I can remember a death penalty case I tried right when DNA first started. And
I mean, they really should keep it close to the vest, because if somebody that was involved in this is watching it, it could mess up the case, but also this could be to stir things up and make somebody really uncomfortable.
It was that RFLP DNA, and you had to have about the sample size of a quarter. And by the time the guy had gotten it overturned and come back and I had to try him again, we had PCR. And so now you have the smaller, DNA. And so I think they've got the evidence. It's like Manuel said, maybe I was thinking run it through the database. Now, the trap is there. If it is an inside job, if it is family related, if he's never been in the system, I'm sure they have their DNA. But, we've got overlay of DNA when you're dealing with family.
So I wonder if they didn't have the DNA from before, what technique they're using to extract it now. They've had all that. If you guys go, and that's the reason I sent you to Ghost, guys. If you go over there and you look at the evidence, It's rough, by the way. Trigger warning. It's not good. You're literally seeing the garrote that was tied with the pencil on it, and you're seeing the evidence. You're seeing the bad, harsh evidence. What techniques did they use? It makes me wonder, like I said, oh, what A, B negative, O positive? That ain't gonna tell you anything.
Members. So if it's totally
That's a
foreign
joke.
DNA, in other words, not relatives, then maybe they can make a pull from there. And like you said, maybe they have an eye on somebody and they're hoping to see if this makes them change anything. I mean, I've seen, law enforcement can use falsehoods to get confessions, so to speak. So they may say, we've got, we know that there's a red jacket or whatever the case may be. And like you said, wait to see if they go throw it in the dumpster or burn it or things of that.
Yep, and it's coming fast. Mab, good to see you, buddy. I emailed you back. Mab's got the stocking stuffers. All right.
Exactly. There's so many more questions with this case. I wish we had more time.
All right, so what I'm gonna do quickly is I got this clip cut down into 5 minutes just so you can see the actual clip of what he says, and then we're going to look at this from a different perspective.
For nearly 3 decades, JonBenet's dad, John Ramsey, is still waiting for answers and still believes.
Now, every year they do this, okay? Every year they do it. Every year around this time, I told you that this happened around Christmas, okay? Every time they do this, he comes on. He goes to Crime Con. I really want to go to Crime Con, by the way, which we're going to go next year. James, I can drop my email in a minute if the mods don't. All right.
Believing a breakthrough will come. And John joins me now live. John, I can't even count how many times you and I meet at this time of year to discuss what's new, what's happening, what's different, what's changed. But something does feel different this year. To hear Chief Redfern say that they've got new evidence, that they've retested old evidence, and that they're using outside experts. Let's start with the new evidence and the retesting of old evidence. Have they told you anything about that?
All right. And again, let's pay attention to how he acts, how he responds. This happens every year, but every year they don't have new, fresh set of eyes, and they don't have new DNA evidence. And guys, if there's DNA evidence from a male on her panties, right? Then that's a problem. I would just see them on Reddit. See who. Oh, you see the pictures on Reddit? No problem, my friend. No problem. Many of us stay off of Reddit, but I don't want people running into those things. So yes, wherever you can go find them, go find them.
Well, Chief Redfern told us, gosh, I don't know, September, we had a meeting with him, and that he had submitted evidence for additional DNA testing. He didn't say what evidence it was, but that it was submitted again, or perhaps new. We don't know if it was new or stuff that had been tested before. We, of course, have advocated that if certain evidence that was taken from the crime scene has never been sampled, that it ought to be. The main one being the garrote that was used to strangle my daughter. So it's encouraging.
Did you hear how he said that, by the way? When I get a parent that talks like that, or anybody that's talking about an interview and the way he said, I'm just going to do one more time. Just pay attention to how he says, strangle my daughter, and just kind of didn't really want to say it. And that could be just because, okay, Crime Con, I see it. Just because he doesn't want to think about that. I just don't like it. I don't like it. What's up, One Man Trash? Good to see you. Hold on. I'm going to just go back for a second.
The crime scene has never been sampled, that it ought to be. The main one being the garrote that was used to strangle my daughter. So it's encouraging.
Yeah, he like closes his eyes. I feel like he's blocking it out. And it can be because he wants to block it out and not think about it. But Corinne, what's up? Tears in Heaven. Good to see you. Crime Con is going to be cool. He was at Crime Con last year. I have him doing a little quick 3-minute interview with Nate Eaton from Idaho News.
And, the key really in progress has been the addition of new leadership there. It was not very good for 25, 26 years. And brought in Chief Rep from the outside. I've met with him 3 or 4 times. I'm impressed with him. I think he's he's sincere and honest, and so I'm encouraged. And we've advocated.
I can't believe, John, I can't believe that the chiefs in the past haven't seen it as a priority, if only to become, famous in name as the chief that solved this case. It just defies logic that it's taken 3 decades for someone to come along who maybe does make this a.
It's been since December 26, 1996 is when this happened. All right. So keep that in mind, and what they had, what they didn't have, what they have now, and the cases that have been solved. Look at the Golden State Killer. That was a 30-year-old case. All right.
Priority and who has the chops. Do you know if they have enlisted labs like Othram? And I bring up Othram because it's famous for having solved the Idaho murders.
Yeah, no, Othram is one of the few cutting edge labs that can do investigative genetic genealogy. IgG is the term for it.
And it did sound like that. I'm glad I played it again because I felt weird about it. It wasn't garage, it was garage. And he said, now Coffee and Dog Studio I heard him say the garage, we strangled her, but that is not what he said, Coffee and Dog. And I understand what you're saying. He said the garrote she was strangled with. So I hear what you're saying, and I did play it twice, but we're going to keep going through it because we have more. That's the first time I've heard him pronounce garrote correctly with the O sound all these decades. 100 times he's pronounced it deliberately a sound. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I appreciate that. Wes is having he's mad behind me. So let me grab him.
We've been advocating that the Boulder Police do that, use that technology in our case. I think if they do, we've got a probably a 70-80% chance of getting an answer. It's been very successful in solving old cold cases. It's kind of the latest and greatest use of technology and DNA to solve crimes. And
I'm going to tell you something. When I saw the posting of Chief Redfern, I went deep down in the comments and I was reading the comments. And John, I'm not going to lie, I was so disheartened to see how many people out there still believe you had something to do with it.
And again, we're gonna do a different. You're welcome, Coffee. I would totally play it again if we weren't going to re-examine it. But like I said, he closed his eyes. He pronounced it different. The way what you heard and what I heard. All right. Thanks. I'm glad you're here, P. Weeskill. I don't know how to say her name, but I'm glad you're here. Thank you for finding our channel. Hit the like and subscribe, please.
Despite the fact, and let me repeat this loud and clear, that the Boulder Police and everybody else involved in investigating the murder of your daughter, they have cleared you over and over and over again. And they've gone so far as to apologize for having left you under that umbrella of suspicion for so long, to the point where Patsy died before she was cleared from that umbrella of suspicion. So for anybody watching,
you hear what's happening here. Nobody was really cleared, guys, or we wouldn't be in this predicament right now. All right. I think we all agree on the fact that it was somebody that was close to him. There's no way they would have known his exact amount, that what his bonus was going to be for a ransom. There's no way they were going to come into the house and do this to a little girl and then go use your own paper and pen to write it. There's so many things, and that's what we're talking about today. All right, anybody that rolled in late, don't worry, we got you.
If you're one of the commenters, do your research before you make such painful comments about John and his family. Okay, that aside, I will say this because you brought it up when we, I think, spoke at CrimeCon, that you wish that they would ask you to re-interview. You wish that they would bring you in so that you could once again tell them everything that they might want to know. Is that, I know you got the meeting in January. Is that on the agenda?
Well, we haven't put it on the agenda yet, but we're going to ask for a meeting again in January for an update. And they've always been, at least with Chief Redfern, very cordial in honoring that request. So, they've been fairly quiet about what they're doing. I think if I read between.
Well, like I said, we just listened to that and they weren't able to clear the family with DNA evidence. I have heard them, and I hope you just heard that right now. See, Becky, they literally just said that she wasn't really cleared, but yet sometimes they have. I've heard them apologize to the family, and then another person comes into the case and they point their fingers at them. So they haven't been cleared by DNA just yet. Right. So we're going to see what changes in this. And she just said that regardless of what we've heard, everybody think again.
The lines of his latest report that he issued, there's some encouraging words there. And so I'm more optimistic than I've been in a long time, certainly with new leadership. The problem with the old leadership, it was the old guard. These people that were in that police department had never investigated a murder. They decided on day one that we were guilty.
I mean, and do you hear that? What he's saying? He's telling us they didn't know what they were doing either. They focused so heavily on them without really having much evidence. They didn't look outside, and now they're doing that. Although I think what they're going to find is someone real close. If it's not him or Burke, you all tell me who else would have access to know where to come in, where to get paper, where to write like her, the same kind of writing as her mother. A lot of things. Too many coincidences. And in true crime, we don't believe in coincidences.
Literally day one. And that became the conclusion that they tried to fit the evidence to. And of course, they ran into problems because they couldn't fit the evidence.
Right. I should mention as well, just
thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation app.
And guys, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just laying out for you what I have, and that's for you to decide. There's people that think that they had nothing to do with it, and then there's people that feel like, damn, what did Burke do? All right, so here we go. Deception Detective just came out with this last night, and I always call for him. I called for him to analyze the Rob Reiner's son, Nick Reiner. We'll see if that happens. I've seen some interviews with Nick Reiner now, and it makes so much more sense. All right, there's no coincidences in crime, none in my opinion. I agree. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend anyone to hold their breath in a case this old, but it is refreshing to hear that they're doing something further. All right, let's go.
People out there still believe you had something to do with it, despite the fact, and let me repeat this loud and clear, that the Boulder police and everybody else involved in investigating the murder of your daughter, they have cleared you over and over and over again. And they've gone so far as to apologize for having left you under that umbrella of suspicion for so long. So for anybody watching, if you're one of the commenters, do your research before you make such painful.
We gotta know now, and yes, we do our research. I'm not sitting there calling John a piece of trash. I would never do that. I might run into him at CrimeCon, and I would hate to put my foot in my mouth and be blaming him, be that crazy YouTuber. I'm not blaming him at all. We're just talking this out. There's new, fresh evidence, and we're going over it. All right. So we're not going to bash. He is a victim in this case right now. He is the father of a little girl that was red-rummed, and he's been doing this for the majority of his last half of his life. All right. And again, like I said, we're going to go to CrimeCon next year. I wouldn't want to run into him and be trash talking him and then be like, oh, sorry. Yeah, I called you a bunch of bad names, but hello, sir. That's not who I am. I'm going to be real across the board. And yes, they have found new DNA evidence, ma'am.
Comments about John and his family. Okay, that aside.
No, we won't leave that aside because unfortunately for Banfield and John Ramsey, I don't like being lectured, and that's not how DNA evidence works. So in today's video, let's break down the supposed bombshell new evidence in the JonBenet Ramsey case to figure out what's actually going on. I'm Deception Detective, an attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel.
And he's not going to be told what to do. You hear me, y'all? We're not going to bully DD at all. He's going to tell us what he thinks and how he's breaking it down. Yes, ma'am, new DNA. As a matter of fact, the DNA evidence that is coming came from her panties, which means that JonBenet Ramsey was SA'd, either when the time of her death, before, or even it could have been a longer CSAM, right? She could have been regularly Okay, yes, on the underpants. And again, you can go look at Ghost. It's got pictures of the garrote, her neck, the bruising, the panties, all the stuff that I can't show on YouTube is there. All right. And JonBenet, I'll tell you when Patsy, give me a second. I'll tell you when she passed away.
Exposes lies and manipulation. So if that's your thing, hit subscribe. For early access to new videos, over 60 exclusive videos, and other cool perks, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. As I said in the intro, DNA evidence doesn't clear suspects by simply not matching them. That's not how deductive logic works. But just in case you're new here and haven't seen my earlier JonBenet Ramsey videos, or that logic doesn't make sense to you, don't worry, I'll explain it in a minute. For now, let's just get straight into this interview.
This month marks 29 years since 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was found murdered inside her own home in Boulder.
Yep.
That means nearly 3 decades of questions and investigations.
And yes, I absolutely agree with that. They didn't have enough evidence. They had a grand jury that was going to indict, and the DA wouldn't go forward because they didn't have enough evidence. All right. And Patsy Ramsey died June 24th, 2006. She was only 49 years old, guys. I'm 46 years old. She was 3 years older than me. She passed away at her father's home in Georgia after a long battle with recurring ovarian cancer. All right. So she never got to find out who, if she didn't know.
Investigative missteps and one of the most haunting unsolved cases in American history.
Yeah, I agree.
JonBenet was killed the day after Christmas, 1996. Strangled, her skull fractured, her body left in the basement. And despite some brief moments of hope over the years, no one has ever been charged in this crime. But there may be a new development. Boulder police have just said that they have new evidence in the case.
Thanks,
in their annual update, Police Chief Stephen Redfern said that JonBenet's murder remains a top priority. And he outlined new steps being taken to move the case forward. Take a look.
This past year, our detectives have conducted several new interviews, as well as re-interviewed individuals based on tips that we've received. We've also collected new evidence and tested and retested other pieces of evidence.
Now that's for you, Mr. Mab. You missed that in the beginning. I wanted you to hear that now. And Allison says, and I don't remember this, she went to the doctor weekly for UTIs. Guys, I'm telling you, at the time of JonBenet Ramsey and her being in the pageant, etc., they sexualized her heavily in those pictures. If you go back to my last episode of JonBenet Ramsey that I did in March, all right, March of 2025, I showed you some of the most awful pictures that they didn't feel were awful. They were putting those out there. It's disturbing to see a little girl grabbing someone's belt loop, and the way that they posed her and positioned her. I guarantee you there was a lot of pedos at that time that were also looking. All right. So that's terrible too. I'm not into that stuff. And they were very disturbing images.
To generate new leads. Techniques and technology constantly evolve. This is especially true with technology related to DNA testing. Detectives continue to consult with outside experts from across the country.
And you're absolutely right, Jacqueline. Even if the DNA is on her underwear, it doesn't mean that they took her life. But what they do have is that garrote with hair in it. What they do have is a bunch of other key pieces of evidence. And if that DNA matches that evidence just from touching it, then they can absolutely charge for that. All right. She was 6 years old. And yeah, 6-year-old getting a UTI, that doesn't make sense unless if they were just giving her caffeine and soda and that makes sense.
As well as our state and federal partners to strategize and explore all options when it comes to evidence testing.
I don't like them.
Police are not saying what that evidence is or who has been interviewed, but they are confirming that new and follow-up interviews have been conducted and that new evidence has been collected. They also say that older evidence has been retested using advances in DNA technology with help from state, federal, and outside experts. I'll get to that in a moment. Outside experts.
Before we get to those outside experts, and don't worry, I'll break down what they have to say, let's just bring it.
Oh, we don't worry about that, sir. And ladies, there's your eye candy for the day, all right? Mr. Deception Detective, not only is he pretty, but he's smart. And I just love his perspective. Don't forget, he's a lawyer trained in statement analysis. It's not body language. So when I was looking at John talking, I was just looking at the way he was talking, how he was closing his eyes, the things he was saying. Yeah, the ransom note is a huge key piece of evidence. And you call it strange, but there's a lot more to it.
Everyone to the table. Here's my theory of what happened to JonBenet and my explanation for why unmatched DNA doesn't clear suspects from an earlier video in the series. In case you're not familiar, my theory about this case is that Burke either accidentally or intentionally killed JonBenet, and then John and Patsy staged the kidnapping and garroting to cover it up and protect their son. So
right. So did you hear that? This is what he's thinking, and I've thought that many times before.
Theory about this case is that Burke either accidentally or intentionally killed JonBenet, and then John and Patsy staged the kidnapping and garroting to cover it up and protect their son. So the question I often get is, well, DD, if Burke killed JonBenet, how do you explain the unidentified DNA? The issue here is that the question is based on a fallacy that whoever left that DNA must be the killer. But that's not necessarily true.
And see, we addressed that, Jacqueline. We addressed it. You see, we're going to do all sides today. We're not just pointing the finger, and I'm not pointing the finger at John. I'm just looking at the evidence and making statements about it, making assumptions. John already knows that his family's DNA is not in the underwear. Law enforcement back then even went to a Chinese underwear factory to get DNA. Well, we don't know exactly what. They told us that they're taking it from the DNA from the panties, but that could just be a tactic, Jacqueline. That could be a tactic for someone to think, oh, well, exactly what you were thinking about. Just because that matches doesn't mean he took her life. Right, Jay, I really hope it gets justice for JonBenet. I remember this happening. I had little ones at the time. So sad. Bless her. I agree with you. And thank you for being here. Indy Isham, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Guys, we got a goal, and I appreciate it. All right.
The Ramseys were at a Christmas party that night, and that trace DNA could have come from anyone who'd ever been in that house. The Ramseys' own home was bustling with staff, police, and visitors the very morning JonBenet's body was found.
And see, I want to know, like KT, the geeky geek, I want to know what you think. If you think the Burke theory is ridiculous, tell me what you think. Everything's on the table at this point. We're not focused on one thing in today's topic. We're looking at everything. So what do you got? Tell me about that. Holly, thank you so much for the $1.99 super sticker. Choo choo. Let's go.
Even the supposed evidence that JonBenet was alive when the garrote was applied doesn't rule out Burke clinically killing her with blunt force trauma and the parents biologically killing her with the garrote during the cover-up without ever even knowing. My main point is, if all the evidence is pertinent and it all neatly leads to a single evil mastermind, right before credits roll, you're watching a TV show. Real life is chaotic, full of trade-offs, opportunism, mistakes, stupidity, and randomness. I'll link that video on the end card so you can watch it next, but hopefully you see why I don't like being lectured about the DNA evidence when it doesn't match anyone. That doesn't clear the Ramseys or anyone else on the planet. All right, let's keep watching because that's not the only shell game John Ramsey and his PR team are playing.
And again, guys, I understand the whole, he's pushing it. He goes to CrimeCon and he talks about it, but it doesn't mean it's not somebody that was still close to the family, that was essaying her. And even if they match it from the sexual assault from the panties, it doesn't mean it's that person. All right. So let's keep going. We don't know exactly what DNA they actually said the panties, but they also said they took evidence that they've already tested, they've retested, and they clearly said there's also new evidence that's never been tested. So we'll try to make assumptions based on the evidence we're given.
John joins me now live. Let's start with the new evidence and the retesting of old evidence. Have they told you anything about that?
Well, Chief Redfern told us, gosh, I don't know, September, we had a meeting with him, and that he had submitted evidence for additional DNA testing. We, of course, have advocated that if certain evidence that was taken from the crime scene has never been sampled, that it ought to be. The main one being the garrote that was used to strangle my daughter. So it's encouraging. And
So he just said that again. I know someone came in here earlier and wanted me to replay that. That's what he just said. All right. I don't know about a life insurance policy. I didn't even know. I'll take a look at it. And yeah, he did offer to pay out of the pocket for testing. He's offered quite a bit. He's been very forthcoming. All right. Let's keep going. Dale, thank you so much. I didn't even know you were here. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for the $5 super sticker. All right. I will take a look and see if they talk about a life insurance policy.
You know, the key really in progress has been the addition of new leadership there. It was not very good for 25, 26 years. And brought in Chief Red from the outside. I've met with him 3 or 4 times. I'm impressed with him. I think he's sincere and honest. And
all right, so just quickly, and again, we're not bashing any one person. You guys asked about the life insurance for JonBenet, although I don't think that has anything to do with it. The open sources and the official case summaries focus on the ransom note of $118,000 matching John Ramsey's bonus and other financial angles, but there's no list or verified insurance amount on JonBenet Ramsey, right? There's speculation, etc., but I haven't even heard about that, and I still wouldn't think that would be, I don't think that would be a motive, just in my opinion, but who knows? All right. Who's victim blaming this little girl? No one's victim blaming. I'm just saying that's what we're not doing. All right. You say it's not semen, folks. It's superficial touch DNA. And if you have an article, I'd love to see that.
so I'm encouraged. And, you know, we've advocated.
I can't believe, John, I can't believe that the chiefs in the past haven't seen it as a priority, if only to become, you know, famous in name as the chief that solved this case. It just defies logic that it's taken 3 decades for someone to come along who maybe does make this priority and who has the chops. I'm going to tell you something. When I saw the posting of Chief Redfern, I went deep down in the comments and I was reading the comments. And John, I'm not going to lie, I was so disheartened to see how many people out there still believe you had something to do with it, despite the fact, and let me repeat this loud and clear, that the Boulder police and everybody else involved in investigating the murder of your daughter, they have cleared you over and over and over again.
And there you go. There she's saying it again. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're saying. That's what we're talking about. All bets are on the table at this point, even though you just heard at the beginning, again, a law enforcement or an expert pointing at John with all the knowledge he has of the case. Why even go there? All right. And I did look up the DNA evidence. They are not giving us, I am not finding one thing that tells us, oh, it's touch DNA, or it literally only talks about fresh DNA and then stuff they've already tested. So DNA was known from JonBenet's underwear from under her fingernails. That's the same core DNA evidence, guys, that helped, they say, to clear the Ramsey family in 2008. All right. So the recent updates on calls are to retest that existing DNA and possibly additional items like the ransom note, the ligature, garrote, and the clothing using more sensitive techniques and genetic genealogy similar to what was used in the Golden State case, guys. John Ramsey has been very forthcoming and working with the DNA experts. They said the newer testing might be able to extract a clearer profile from the mixed or degraded samples. And then they're going to search the genealogy databases to identify relatives of the unknown male. But police have not announced that what the new profile is. Has it matched? Is there a suspect? All right. Public statements from Boulder and John Ramsey indicate that the discussions are ongoing. Additional testing is being done, and the evidence continues to be collected, and that there's a little bit of new DNA evidence, but we don't know what. Describing new evidence and methods, but it doesn't say anything about touch DNA. So let's keep going.
And they've gone so far as to apologize for having left you under that umbrella of suspicion for so long, to the point where Patsy died before she was cleared from that umbrella of suspicion. So for anybody watching, if you're one of the commenters, do your research before you make such painful comments about John and his family.
As I've pointed out many times in my JonBenet Ramsey videos, the Ramseys are opportunists. In other words, they answer questions in the way that suits them most in the moment, which is why we found so many contradictions in their interviews. Case in point, Banfield used the police's apology to John for even suspecting him of being a suspect as a way to lecture us for questioning his story. But just a minute prior, they were talking about how incompetent that police department was. So which is it? Are they incompetent? In which case, who cares what they apologize for? Or are they competent? In which case, they might have been onto something when they were suspecting John and Patsy. As you can see, it makes no sense, and that's because it's basically the liar's equivalent of cognitive dissonance. But besides being opportunists, they're also manipulative, and even Banfield seems to be jumping in on the emotionality. Is it sad that Patsy passed away while under the suspicion of murdering her daughter? Yeah, I think it is, because I don't think she murdered JonBenet. I think she and John both, out of a deep sense of love for their son, covered up the murder because I think the son did it. So while I personally think it's a tragedy all around, that doesn't excuse lying, and definitely doesn't excuse them lecturing or gaslighting people out there who.
And again, they said they cleared the entire Ramsey family, which is interesting. Why they're coming at this angle with a new DNA. All right, and again, we're just talking about who it could be. That there's a huge possibility that it was somebody that knew John from the family, that knew the layout of the house, that knew what his bonus was. Absolutely. And guys, Deception Detectives here. He says, "Hi guys. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your commentary and you. So thank you." Yeah, I know they're not cleared by you. You've got some very strong opinions, and I love it. I love when people can say what they think, how they feel, and with the evidence. You're not just, you're not trying to gaslight anybody. That's how you feel.
Can plainly see the obvious. But the biggest insult in this entire interview is coming up next.
Okay, that aside, I will say this because you brought it up when we, I think, spoke at CrimeCon, that you wish that they would ask you to re-interview. You wish that they would bring you in so that you could, once again, tell them everything that they might want to know. Is that, I know you got the meeting in January. Is that on the agenda?
Well, we haven't put it on the agenda yet, but we're going to ask for a meeting again in January for an update. And they've always been, at least with Chief Redfern, very cordial in honoring that request. So, they've been fairly quiet about what they're doing. I think if I read between the lines of his latest report that he issued, there's some encouraging words there. And so I'm more optimistic than I've been in a long time, certainly with new leadership. The problem with the old leadership, it was the old guard. These people that were in that police department had never investigated a murder. They decided on day one that we were guilty.
And guys, he realizes that. He realizes what a shit job they've done. All right. Burke's alive and so is John. Those two people are still alive. And I mean, just because Burke acted weird in the interviews, which we played the last time, doesn't make him a suspect. But what makes him a suspect is the things that we hear that he did to JonBenet Ramsey, how he was jealous of her. What did someone say? He hit her with a hockey stick. Who knows what else happened in that household between the two?
Literally day one. And that became the conclusion that they tried to fit the evidence to. And of course, they ran into problems because they couldn't fit the evidence.
Right. I should mention as well, just for those who might be dabbling in the case and thinking that they know more than the average Joe, there is unknown male DNA on JonBenet's clothing, multiple different parts of her clothing, not just one piece, multiple different pieces of her clothing have the same unknown male DNA, meaning it's the same DNA from the same person. So that's a critical piece of this, of this mystery. John, have they said to you anything about what new evidence they're referring to and what new interviews they've conducted?
No, they haven't. And of course, that's one of the questions we'll ask is, okay, what new evidence do you have? Did you test the DNA in the latest format that's necessary to do IgG, investigative genetic
And if they really mess that case up like this from the very beginning, maybe we won't ever get answers if it was an outside person that just knew them and was like, I want to get that money. Are they going to pay for it? But I still don't think that was the motivator, guys. That ransom note and the 118,000 being so specific, I just am not seeing any of that as being, I feel like none of it has to do with what happened. That was just part of the cover up. And if you've seen the evidence that they have, let me know, or take that from your brain and check out the actual evidence, photos they have and the things, and then tell me how you feel.
Theology. And that would be very encouraging to us if they've done that. This new technology, it's been around for 3 or 4 years, is really truly an investigative tool that allows police to investigate and look for the killer. The CODIS federal database of DNA it's been around for 30 years. It's frankly a little obsolete, in my opinion. So
you know why? You got to have a criminal. And as we know from the Golden State Killer, that guy wasn't a criminal. He was a cop. And so he was caught through genetic genealogy because he wasn't in CODIS, but he was in the family tree of all those folks who've tested their DNA. John, I say it.
And now, speaking of tested DNA, so that was that's a good question to ask. Now, life insurance, I didn't even know that they took a policy, and it's not 100%. It's not 100%. I can't find like an actual policy. Lori, good to see you. 4 p.m., my friend. Now listen, talking about the DNA and asking me when Burke was cleared. Now, law enforcement did not clear Burke Ramsey through a single publicized DNA test of him. It was on a specific date. Instead, he was ruled out over time as part of a broader forensic and investigative work. The key milestones in this case are from 1996 to 1997, the initial interviews and evaluations, and then in 2003, the development of an unknown male DNA profile, and in 2008, the DA's formal statement clearing the family. So it led from 1996 up to 2008 when they were formally cleared. And I hope that helps you guys. I hope that what we're doing is helping this case and getting more exposure, because that's what we're here for. All I want for Christmas is a Christmas ornament from Jay. Not into Christmas this year, but making Mexican street corn lasagna, carne adoba, and green chili cheese. Well, thank you for being here. Let's try to get you that ornament, all right? All right, you would get a much higher return if you just put money onto a good savings program for the children when they're older. Yes, agree. They have many more life insurance policies now that you can take out for children, guys, where you take it out, but it also goes towards their college fund. So you pay into it and you hope that they're healthy and you die before your children do, and then they can go to college. I don't have that. I have a college fund for for baby guilty, but again, it all's changed since way back when.
Every year, I'm going to say it again. I pray for you. I pray for you and Jan that you will get resolution. You will get justice.
If you're not aware, I put lies into 3 buckets, and they're all based on the testimony oath. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So you have lies of commission when someone fabricates something whole cloth. You have lies of omission when someone tells the truth but leaves out key details. And you have the most advanced type of lie, information treatment, when someone tells the literal truth but in a way that makes it misleading. I've put the card from my deception deck on your screen now if you want to read the full rule, but the reason I'm pointing it out is because that seems to be what Ashley Banfield was just doing when she was pointing out how there's this multiple instances of the same DNA on JonBenet. Well, allow me to clue you in on something.
All right, before we do that, I want to look at the spotting lies. You guys already know. No, I'm not being paid to say this, but the deception deck, guys, if you're a creator, or even if you're not, this deck is just, it's a tremendous help to spot lies and manipulation, even in your real life. So even though he's not reading, I'm going to tell you the spotting common lies. I'll just read it quickly. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. A testimony oath. When evaluating statements for deception, consider 3 components of the testimony. Okay, testimony oath: commission, This involves bold-faced lies of commission, where an individual outright contradicts the oath's pledge to tell the truth, all right, through direct falsehood. So they never lie. They just don't talk about it. They won't use that sentence, right? They just use falsehoods to explain how they didn't do it. And then omission. Here lies omission. The subject tells part of the truth, but intentionally omits incriminating or crucial information, not adhering to the whole truth. Jen Soto, easy to spot. Distortion. The final method involves information treatment. The truth is presented, but it's warped with an additional language such as exclusion, qualifiers, or a passive tone, deviating from nothing but the truth. And that's what I was hearing when John was talking. All right, let's keep going.
Lots of bodies have multiple instances of DNA. It doesn't mean that the owner of that DNA is a murderer. Check my JonBenet Ramsey playlist on the end card if you want to see me point out more red flags, plot holes, and contradictions in the Ramsey story. If you want more like this,
thank you so much, Chris Cutie, for the $1 super chat. All right, we love DD2, sticks with the women's intuition and never lies. We're not done, but let's wrap this one up.
Let me know by liking, commenting, and sharing. Until next time, stay true.
Stay true, my friends. Stay true. All right, what do we got next? I see you guys very active in chat, and I love it. I love being able to discuss these things, these new cases, the old cases with you, because your input is valuable. All right, so this is the author of the JonBenet Ramsey, and they pulled down the video that had it cut. So I found it for you. We're going to talk about the theory behind who killed JonBenet Ramsey from the author that wrote the book with lots and lots of evidence. I don't know why comments are frozen. I have no idea. Carly, what's up? Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, get a membership if you can. And that's a good assumption. Maybe it was pre-written, but still, how did they pre-write that? And at the same time, had they pre-write it from a pad that was in the house? Tell me that. How could you possibly pre-plan that? All right. Anyway, this was a Nick Reiner, and then they jumped into the theory of the person writing the book. And this came out this actually came out this morning. It came out last night, and they clipped it, and then I had to find it again. So let's talk about that right now. The biggest theory that we have is possibly Burke doing that to his sister, possibly, and then the parents helping cover. But what does this person have to say about it?
6-year-old died is joining me live on the show.
This case remains a top priority for our department. This past year, our detectives have conducted several new interviews, as well as re-interviewed individuals based on tips that we've received. We've also collected new evidence and tested and retested other.
Yeah, man, you think about JonBenet every time you eat a pineapple. Now listen, Merry Christmas, Moose. They're going to, at some point, have either degradation of the evidence, if that's not already happened, or no more evidence to test. All right, there's a certain amount of evidence, and if they mishandled it incorrectly, we just may never know. You say you think Patsy wrote it. Flair for the dramatic. She was very dramatic, although they did try to say that it was the same kind of wording that she uses. They evaluated that, and many people believe that it was from Patsy. But then still, we don't know what happened. She's not going to write a ransom note for some random stranger.
Pieces of evidence to generate new leads. And I urge those responsible for this murder to contact us.
It is the season for true crime. Each morning, we'll dive into a case that took place around the holidays. Join us for the 12 days of...
I didn't mean to do that. I was getting something else for y'all.
Of Chadbourne Avenue.
No, this is not.
Let's start with you, please. So he's going to...
They jumped there, and they took my other video down. Dang it. All right, hold on. I got something for you real quick. I have other things to show you. I'm going to put this up real quick, and this is talking about Chesapeake Duo, aim to solve. Let me put this up so I can find that video again. Dang it, they pulled it down. All right, one second.
Profile murder mysteries in modern history. Who killed JonBenet Ramsey? The 6-year-old child model was found dead in the basement of her Colorado home the day after Christmas, 1996. The case has haunted investigators for nearly 30 years now. Now, Andy Fox shows us how the murder is getting some attention here in Hampton Roads. Andy?
Yeah, it sure is. The Chesapeake Private Eyes met John Ramsey while providing him personal security at a conference. They became friends, and John Ramsey also enjoyed reading Patrick Collis's book, Send Me. The Private Eyes then told Ramsey, "We'd like to help," and Ramsey accepted the offer.
Oh, good, because we were trying to get into the author that created that and her theory, and they freaking took it down. No, I don't like it. Yeah, whoever wrote that note was familiar with Patsy's sayings and styles, and that's the thing. We either have the family that, in my opinion, we either have the family that did it or somebody close to the family that had to mimic what Patsy said, that had to mimic what his bonus was, and they were trying to frame him. All right, good to see you, Saucy Skin CBD. I messaged you back. Why did he need personal security? Probably because after a case like this happens and fingers get pointed, Wyatt, people want to assault you. There's death threats, etc. All right, let's play this so I can see if I can find the other one. If not, then, well, we're still doing the do. If y'all have questions while we're doing this, let me know.
Who killed 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey, a beauty pageant queen, found dead December 26, 1996, in her Boulder, Colorado home? The medical examiner's report determined cause of death, strangulation, trauma to the brain and skull.
One thing that we know for sure, a 6-year-old girl was tortured and murdered. We know that to be fact.
Nearly 30 years later, JonBenet's death is the coldest of cold cases.
I said, well, we'd be interested in looking into it. If there's anything that we can do to help?
Chesapeake Private Eyes, Preston Hocker and Patrick Collis have caught the eyes of JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, after working his convention security detail.
So that's where Isaiah 6:8 comes into play, which is the name of my book, Send Me, is, I heard the voice of the Lord say, who shall I send? Who will go for them? And I said, here am I, send me.
John Ramsey also impressed after reading Collis's story in his book, Send Me. Ramsey accepted Collis and Hocker's offer to work the Ramsey cold case for free. They come prepared with strategy.
I personally am going to focus my approach on the ransom note.
The ransom note states, Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We have your daughter in our possession.
There's a lot to tell there. That's how I'm going to build the profile of the unsub. As you read on it, progressively gets personal, very personal and angry, because then you start referring to him as.
And again, we have to go back to this because we're having a discussion on this about the note. All right. Thank you. Our deathbed confession eventually, maybe. I don't know, but I think that the DNA that they're testing is going to have some value to it. Just because of what they're saying. All right. Sharon Keto, good to see you, my friend. Hit that like button. I have an opinion. This case, he's guilty or not. What's about this case? He's guilty or not. Yeah, there you go. But what do you think happened? That's what I want to know. Yeah, they completely pulled that clip. I don't know why they did that, but all right, we're gonna look at this, and then we're gonna take a look at John from the Crime Con just months ago. And I want to know what you all think. I mean, I really do think that is absolutely the most inside job. I really, truly do. But what does that mean? Who is it? I still do think Burke. I think Burke had something to do with it, and they covered it up. Now, was she being assaulted by somebody else?
John.
They believe it was so targeted because the ransom note refers to a rich lifestyle.
Somebody that was close to maybe his work. Asked for a specific amount of money that was significant to John's finances.
They are hoping the new eyes means new direction for the investigation.
We're just not going to take anybody's word for it at this point.
They think balls were dropped in the investigation early on.
And we want to make sure we relook at evidence that maybe some people have said it's not this person, it's not this person. We want to make sure those things are conclusive, not just suggestive.
The challenge is daunting. They don't have the access police detectives do.
They have the ability to compel cooperation. They have the ability to subpoena through the courts and the DA and lawyers. Well, we don't have that. We have to rely on professional courtesy.
And you know, John's not going to have much longer to be doing this. All right. Patsy said John was northern, not southern, deliberate misdirection. And, you know, the deliberate writing as well. All right. And if you go back, the new DNA that was found just came out days ago. You got to go back to the beginning, 12/8/9/33. But yes, it's absolutely brand new. Burke is her brother. Yes. And we've covered that. If you go back to my last episode, we completely covered Burke and his interviews. We covered the surrounding actions, how he is as a person. Like, we've looked at the brother high and low. I don't know what law enforcement's doing.
And collective efforts.
Besides a confession, they think untested DNA and private DNA databases like 23andMe will help solve the case.
I'm very confident in that. And so we want to reach out to them and see if they've thought about that. They probably have, but we don't know.
The goal in the end.
We're taking the chance because there's also a chance that we do something that nobody else has been able to do yet, which is find out exactly what happened to this little girl. The only way that evil gets to exist in the world is if good men do nothing. So I think it's a call, not just on us, but on any.
All right, guys, hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things. If you guys still want to hang with me, we've been here an hour and 26 minutes, but I have more to talk about. And the Gilgo Beach DNA ruling is what gave that umph to law enforcement in the JonBenet Ramsey's case, and kind of what freshed it and what they were thinking. So if you guys want that, if you want me to continue, hit that like button and then drop in chat like, hey, yeah, drop a 1 if you want to stay here. If you're leaving, then don't worry about it. All right. I have a little bit more to go to tell you guys.
Good man or woman to do what's right.
Now, Patrick and Preston head to Utah on Thursday and will meet with John Ramsey and his wife, Jan, on Friday. The investigators will lay out their plan, their strategies, and where they think the investigation needs to go. We will keep you posted.
And now, listen, I mean, this is happening. This is what's happening now. I'm going to quickly show you the JonBenet CrimeCon quick little interview. And this is what you have to look forward to. CrimeCon. This was 3 months ago. We missed it. But next year, Guilty of Crime will be in Las Vegas at CrimeCon. And John Ramsey's been there. He showed up. So what does that say about him? Well, he's involved. He wants to know. Or is he involved because he wants to know what evidence they have?
Stage here at CrimeCon with John Ramsey, who is here with some of his family. We were just talking about it's your third CrimeCon.
Right.
Have there been any new developments in the case to find your...
Well, the biggest development, it's been probably a year ago, was sort of the clean house in Boulder. Brought in a new police chief from the outside with good experience. He's a good guy. The Citizens Review Board recommended termination of 5 of their detectives for poor performance, including the one that had our case for years. And he was a poor performer. I have personal experience. So that was a big step. And I met with him, the chief of detectives, new guy, but experienced.
No, Burke absolutely did not write that note, in my opinion. Whoever wrote it tried to disguise. Well, we watched a whole video on the actual handwriting and the analysis, and they absolutely disguised their writing. Maybe they wrote it with their left hand instead of their right. But yeah, that letter is one of the big key pieces of evidence, which they now say there's more evidence on the note too. So that would be touch DNA, right?
The chief of police I've met with, 3 or 4 times now. And I'm impressed. They're competent people with experience and good, logical, common sense.
And so have they started from, day one to go through the case?
No. I mean, what I'm advocating strongly is that they go to a outside lab like an Othram, whom I'm familiar with, and
see, you asked the question, if somebody was involved in that or trying to cover up a case or trying to cover up a crime, would they be that involved there? I don't like the way Trisha Websuit harassed John Ramsey at CrimeCon. She's obsessed. Yeah, nobody should harass anybody. And like I said, I have respect for people in general as humans. I would never do that. I would never disrespect or do any of that. And I'm certainly not going to point my finger at him. I'm just saying, look at what we have. Look at what he's doing. Look at how he says it. Look at what he says. What is he doing?
Use the forensic genetic genealogy approach. You have to get new samples to do that because the sample has to be compatible with that. The COVID sample, which we have from, not COVID, CODIS,
yeah.
which is the federal database from 1997, unidentified male DNA, but it's 15 markers. And that's at the time, it was the only thing we had. But it's like, okay, do you match that? Nope. Okay, next. Do you match that? Well, there's 6 billion people in the world. We got to go through all of them. This allows you to do a family tree investigation, and it's huge, and it solved a lot.
And I believe that's exactly what they're doing. They're doing what they did, and I have a clip of the Gilgo Beach DNA ruling giving this a fresh new perspective. So that's what he's talking about here.
A lot of old cold cases.
I think it was an accident
approach.
too.
And so to me, that's the silver bullet.
There's absolutely no physical evidence. If there was physical evidence that you can point out to that Patsy wrote the note, then she would probably have been really reamed for that. But it's speculative that Patsy wrote the note by the language, by the writing they say it disguised, by the way it was written, by the words that was used. So yes, you're right. There's no evidence or little evidence. It's just coincidental type of things, right? Otherwise, she would have already been probably interrogated and locked up.
And we're seeing that all the time
no
now.
longer alive.
Cases being solved.
It's a no-brainer.
Well, it's so good to see you again. I know they're waiting for you to go on the stage, John, and hopefully, by the next time we talk, there's a little bit of progress.
That'd be great. Thanks for your interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think if anything happened like that, I think it was accident. If it was within the family, I absolutely think it would be accidental. I don't think that anybody would have done that on purpose and then tried to cover it up. But if you look at the crime scene, guys, if you see the pictures and the details, it looks like a cover-up. It looks like a staging. The suitcase below the basement window was sus with nothing outside the window. Yes. And again, if you go back to the episode that I did in March of this year, you'll see all that. I actually put the evidence in there. We talked about the window and the basement and the physical evidence. This time we're talking about the new DNA. All right. Clark, good to see you, my friend. The scene was contaminated. The Ramseys called their friends and took them to the crime scene, just like Murdaugh. All right. In the Murdaugh case, he did the same thing. He called his buddies and his lawyers. They came and they trampled all over everything. But at least he got a conviction. Has anyone seen the video of Patsy coming out of the church? In front of her is the brother laughing and running, very happy. No, I haven't. All right.
With the Long Island serial killings spanning decades. 3 letters. DNA. Nowadays, we almost assume that DNA at crime scenes means slam dunk convictions, but old and degraded bones and hairs have old and degraded DNA that most crime labs at police departments can't seem to wrestle with. Enter Astrea. And several other private labs with cutting-edge ways to reconstruct a person's entire genetic makeup from the slightest little.
And I think that's the thing here is I absolutely believe that the crime scene was all coming from the inside, which means it had to be someone that they know, someone from the party, someone. I mean, there's just no way. It just it doesn't look like it looks staged, and it didn't look like anything was broken into. He's on the spectrum. They don't show feeling like we do. Yeah, they did say that about Burke, and he makes himself look suspicious, but we don't want to point fingers at him either. We're just making suppositions here.
Fragment of DNA. It's called whole genome sequencing. And while it's widely accepted by scholars and academics and, well, you and me, judges, that's different. They've been a tougher sell.
Yeah,
science has only been allowed in just a couple of criminal trials around the country, but soon.
And on the spectrum could mean a lot of things, Wyatt. So I don't think that anyone's trying to insult you or wants to insult you. They're just making assumptions about Burke's his behavior. I don't give any weight to Dr. Phil. All right. I tried to run the Dr. Phil, the clip of the episode. It got zapped. I saw the interview. It's in my last episode. but I don't hold any weight. Guilty of crime, grew up not far from Gilgo Beach. Yeah, that's crazy.
It's about to take center stage in a big one, like one of the biggest. New York versus Rex Heuermann, the Long Island serial killer, alleged killer. Okay? He's AKA the Gilgo Beach killer, all alleged.
Yeah.
In a landmark ruling today, a judge said prosecutors will be allowed to introduce evidence that was gleaned from hairs that were found on the Gilgo victims' remains. That evidence was obtained through whole genome sequencing. And that's a first for New York.
So this is giving you a better idea of what it is that they're doing. Mab says, I'm on the spectrum. I got all the letters. Oh my God. You say a seal. I'm not making jabs. Anyone have 6 adopted special needs children and 3 are on the spectrum, right? And on the spectrum can mean a lot of things, right? It can mean a lot of things. That's what I'm going to say. Indy says there's variation. That's why it's called spectrum. He might be higher. Yes, we can't judge like that. Rex looks cringy. Rex is so scary. That's what I want to say, Bucci Mane. He's scary AF. I would run if I saw him.
Brings me back to the murder of little JonBenet Ramsey in Boulder, Colorado. John Ramsey, JonBenet's dad, has been relentless in his belief that advances in DNA technology will ultimately find his daughter's killer. And John Ramsey joins me now live. John, it's good to have you on the show again. Thanks for being here. I thought of you.
Again, he doesn't have a lot longer, guys. He's aged quickly. He's aged, not quickly, but he's aged. And you can see over time. We saw the last interview from 3 months ago at CrimeCon and then from days ago on News Nation. All right.
Listen, today, immediately, I thought about you when the judge in the Long Island serial killing case said, okay, whole genome sequencing, it's in. So what was your reaction to that?
I had to study a little bit to understand. I've been pushing forensic genetic genealogy research in our case for a while. And basically, it requires a different set of data than has been put into CODIS, which is a federal database. CODIS has 15 or 20 markers. If you match the markers, you're the bad guy. If you don't, you're out. There's no way to research genealogy and track.
And what genealogy are they tracking? Is that from they're not really telling us what they're saying for they're retesting and testing new evidence. What is it? I wish we knew a little bit more. And I really do hope that they follow up with and tell us what their findings were, even if they were not successful. I don't think he killed his daughter for the insurance. I never thought it was an insurance or a money thing at all. Not even a little bit.
This genealogy research program with that data, you've got to have this new data taken, new samples taken. And the way what has happened so far with these cases where old cold cases have been solved is they've used this technique of genome sampling and then built a family tree using the mother side of the family. And they go back and create a family tree going back X number of years, depending on how old the case is. And then they look who the relatives were. And there's in the first case that this was solved was a Golden State Killer case in California. It was a 40-year-old case, cold case. Well, they found this guy that was a relative in the town where this crime was committed 4 years ago. Then they went and got his DNA, and the DNA matched the sample they have. And so bingo, they found the killer. So it's a huge advance, and I believe it's the way our case.
Does anyone here think that this was done within the family? That wasn't outside. I mean, in the immediate family with Patsy, John, and just them. Like, let's say those people: Burke, Patsy, John, and JonBenet. Do you guys think? I know there's a lot of people that think someone completely came from the outside and then fabricated this based on the information that they knew. I'm just curious what you think. Okay, you do. See, I've always thought that it was inside, and I always thought that it was an accident. And when you see the dang crime scene, it just feels so staged. I mean, it's hard to look at. It's triggering, but it feels staged AF.
case will be solved. I think it's a really good chance it could be solved if it's implemented. I learned recently that yes, you can get this data from a hair sample. We have several hair samples from JonBenet's crime scene that weren't identified. We don't.
And see, they didn't even identify that. So they've got hairs from the crime scene. They didn't talk about that. They talked about her panties being tested. And I know that's just to get the attention, probably from the media. But damn. All right, guys, we got 254 people still in here. We had 300 something, and I'm so glad that y'all are still here. Hit that like button, please, and then hype it if you can. It's all staged, and they're all living with the misery, yet gain notoriety. Plus, I agree about the staging thing. And the notoriety is awful, but it's still notoriety. And he goes to CrimeCon, I think, every year. I've seen him many years. Burke was not tested for ASD. I'm high functioning ASD. I think he displays traits, but I also think Burke is intensely creepy. And I agree about the creepy part, but I don't know about
pubic hair. There's a pubic hair sample
in
JonBenet's blanket. Not linked to anybody at this point.
All right, pubic hair sample not linked to anybody. Other hairs not linked to anybody. Something in her panties that were an unknown male.
We know you can get a sample from that now. I've heard that before. Of course, heard it in your program. So it's a huge tool to identify.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Given the fact that this whole genome sequencing is good enough to identify a 9/11 victim, right, from 24 years ago, and now the standard is being accepted in this massive case, the serial killer case in New York. I know that you've been meeting with the Boulder police about genetic genealogy.
Interesting.
Do you think it might be worth going back and knocking on the door and saying, hey, look what they're doing in New York. What about this whole genome sequencing? Why don't we go this route as well?
Yeah, and we should. And I have another meeting set up with the chief of police. I've met with him in January. I've got another meeting in a week or so. And that's my message. We've got to use this technique. I firmly believe that it'll solve the case. If we do it and we don't get a solution, then by gosh, I'll give you guys credit. You did everything that technically can be done today. But
I really do hope something comes back before this man passes away. Again, he is so heavily involved in this, and I'm grateful that he is. I'm grateful that he's not hiding like the Wells, right? The Summer Wells, there's a new lead possibly, and they don't want to talk. All the children wore pull-ups. Why if he had to lawyer up? Yeah, and I forgot about JonBenet Ramsey wetting the bed too, and that can be a red flag, or that could be a like, hey, she's got trauma from something else when a child wets the bed at age 6, or when they have to wear pull-ups. I didn't know. Burke was older already. I don't know that if he wore a pull-up, but how long? Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. We just watched a video the other day where a little 8-year-old had a diaper on, but it was because of abuse. All right.
it's a huge advance in the use of DNA technology. You know, the last DNA testing in our case was done about 8 or 9 years ago. Technology has advanced dramatically. This is a great example of that. And
is it ever?
It's an amazing tool. And so the difference that this tool provides is the ability to use DNA information to investigate a case. We've used DNA as a country evidence to convict. DNA matches, boom, we got you. Doesn't match, you're out. That's a pretty primitive use of DNA in today's world.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our News Nation.
Sorry, guys. He just yelled at us all. All right. So I think that's it for today. I did have another thing queued up, but they took it down for some reason. So you guys might want to watch out. Court TV has been coming out with new information. They did an interview with the author that has a new theory about the case, or a theory, and they dropped it. So now I'm not finding any of this. Today we're in December 2025, and the last thing they got is September. They pulled it down. 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was reported missing December 26, 1996. Her body was found hours later in the family's basement. No one's ever been charged in connection. All All right. Well, they tried to charge and that didn't happen. So guys, let's take a look at a couple of questions and then we'll get going. What's the age difference between Burke and the victim? Does anyone know that offhand? How many years older? I can certainly look at it. 3 years. Okay. All right. Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you. Thank you. Same Linda line. What did his family say about him? I never understood the overkill on a 6-year-old. Right. And that's, listen, Cloud Killer. I absolutely think that I don't think that it was overkill. I think that they did that to disguise what happened. And yeah, it could be overkill with the garrote and all the evidence. But yeah, I think it's staged and that's what happened. I don't know. We got a lot of theories now coming in, and a lot of them can be assumptions. I have questions about Patsy's father, who flew out 24 hours beforehand and is babysitting and things. There you go. Well, if they're gonna find that out, they're gonna find that out now. But if she wore a diaper, why was she in panties when they found her? That's a good question. We don't know. And yeah, she had a skull fracture. We talked about what happened to her in the beginning. There's a lot. She was also, strangled, skull fracture, strangled, and possible CSAM or assaulted, right? Because if they found a male DNA in her panties, then she was probably assaulted. I hope they solve the case. Has been since I was a kid. I still don't believe John, Patsy, nor Burke did it. All right, guys, web sleuths, we're going to keep on this. I'm going to really try to follow up as much as I can when I hear something, if I do. And I'd like to bring more of this as it comes out. And I still want that interview with the author. It's really good, and they pulled it down. All right, guys, so we are doing what today? Is that it? Are we good? Did we do everything? I think I will. Okay, tomorrow I'm not sure what we're doing. So what I'm going to do this week is I hope that tomorrow we can come up with another giveaway for Christmas. I got to get it done because I need to get those stockings out there to you guys before Christmas. Tiff, I'm not sure if you're in chat, if you can drop a link. Also, guys, I am still going to give away. I had a lot of people sign up for Ghost. If you upgrade your sign up for Ghost, I'm also going to give a stocking. So one person that signs up for Ghost, and how we pick it, I'm not sure. But yes, it happened at Christmas time. But tomorrow, you guys want to be here because I do want to give away more stockings, and we can talk about what's upcoming for Christmas. All right. It was actually on Christmas, guys, but they found her on December 26, 1996. All right. A lot of information here. No arrests have been made. It remains unsolved after nearly 30 years. Police continuity and bringing in new people to look at it with new evidence. That's all we got. Public interest and unidentified male DNA, ransom note, ligature and cause of death. Guys, there's a lot. There's unreleased evidence. Police have confirmed some physical evidence that has never been publicly disclosed to preserve the investigative integrity. Certain items have been retested with modern forensic techniques, and obviously nothing's come out. The ransom note, guys, it wasn't 4 pages. It was a 2.5-page written note, which is unusually long for a ransom note. They wrote it on the paper from the Ramsey's home, and the language and phrasing remain heavily debated, right? Handwriting analysis has never conclusively identified an author. And then lastly, the male DNA was found in JonBenet's underwear and on her fingernails. This DNA doesn't match any Ramsey family members. It's been entered into CODIS, which is the National DNA Database, with no confirmed matches. And then, as we talked about, investigators are revisiting whether advanced genetic genealogy, like what happened in the Golden State Killer case, Gilgo, right, Brian Koberger, can be applied more fully. So that's where we are in the case today. There's so much we can talk about. We can go into the letter. We can go into the evidence. But I think for now, you say the letter always struck me, matched the mom's handwriting. and many of her grammar, many things that she said with her grammar, etc. So yeah, very, very bizarre. Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to go eat my dinner now. We'll be back here every day, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm in California, 6 p.m. Central and 7 p.m. Eastern. They've checked everything thus far with DNA, but the old way of doing DNA, we haven't heard about the testing that they're doing now with their new DNA, but she did have evidence under her fingernails and definitely on her panties. And you got to remember the garrote also had it. All right. Saucy Skins, good to see you, my friend. Charisse, hello. Who thinks Brooke Ramsey killed JonBenet and the parents covered up? Well, I strongly believe that as my number one theory. So I don't know who else does, but we'll talk about it some more. Hopefully we get updates. You're all welcome. Hit that like button and get out of here. Yeah, thanks for all the new subs. We love you, and we'll see you mañana. Good night. Yeah, Carly too. Carly, I weigh heavily on what Carly says, and she's leaning towards that for sure. All right, Maltese Falconess, Australia. Welcome to the crime crew. Mwah. Love you guys. Have a wonderful night. See you mañana or tomorrow. Bye.
Guilty of crime.
I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, or Gmail. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can use Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Thank you very much in advance. Guilty of crime.
Are you guilty?